Fans of the UFC have gotten plenty of opportunities to watch fights during the pandemic. Two Missoula men have been right there to cover it all with their popular podcast based here in town. And KPAX's Kyle Hansen spoke with them about their podcast.
It's one of those, it's a niche sport, but it is kind of like a nerd fandom that once you get really into it, it goes all year round and it can kind of consume you really easily, and you get so into talking about it with the other people who are into it.
That fandom is mixed martial arts. While sports are slowly getting back into motion, MMA promotions like the UFC kicked back up in May and have been rolling ever since. And in Missoula, writers Chad Dundas and Ben Folks, who have covered MMA for the likes of ESPN, Bleacher Report, USA Today, and The Athletic, have had plenty to talk about. The duo met in grad school at the University of Montana. Finding out they both enjoyed MMA, the two quickly became friends, and a few years later, an idea was formed to start a podcast.
About 2012, Ben's wife, who was the very funny local comedian Sarah Aswell, was like, you guys are always talking about this stuff anyway. Why don't you just start a podcast? And so that's what we did.
And it was an attractive idea to have something that this was just ours, and we could do whatever we want with it. If we want to take a week off, we can. If we want to add other aspects to it, we can. But that nobody can take it away from us.
And so the Co-Main Event podcast was born, and over 8 years has turned into a popular MMA podcasting choice among combat sport fans. And it's based right here in the 406. Thanks to their professions as MMA journalists, the CME fan base is as loyal as it gets to Dundas and Folks, with discussions ranging from serious issues to recent debates about fighter pay and labor unions, to lighthearted jokes about what's going on in the sport in its new form of normal. And of course, life in Missoula.
We have dueling lawnmowers going on during this episode of the CME. It might have, maybe there'll be a pleasing sort of Zen quality to a low-level hum in the background of this episode.
Yeah, that's what I feel when I hear the constant yard work going on in my neighborhood, is how zen it feels.
Yeah, no, people are always very confused when they find out that we both live in Missoula, Montana, and that the podcast is headquartered out of here, and that we both have worked as MMA writers from Montana.
And it just sort of blows people's minds that you could be in a media field and, working for big media companies and be in a place like Missoula, Montana, which to a lot of people in, New York and LA and San Francisco sounds like it might as well be on the moon. It's so far away.
There's been a local angle for them too, as Helena native Sean O'Malley continues to rapidly rise to stardom in the UFC. O'Malley plays the game well both in and outside of the octagon, and Dundas and Folks believe he could go a long way in the UFC.
Sean O'Malley has been the one where you look at what he's done so far and you think, he could rise pretty high in this sport.
I think we probably secretly / not so secretly root for those guys to do well on the main stage. Not because we're necessarily like friends with them or they would even know us if they saw us walking down the street, but just because of home state pride. We want to see the Montana guys represent on the big stage for sure.
In Missoula, Kyle Hansen, MTN Sports.
Co-Main Event drops every Monday wherever you get your podcast. For those who are fans of Sean O'Malley, Sugar Sean returns to action on August 15th to fight on the main card of UFC 252.